What is up, fellow nerds, and welcome back to the Dapper Snapper Gaming channel, and welcome back to How Do I Want to Do This? This is our series where we take a look at all playable options available to players in Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, then we rank them on a scale of 1 to 10 and either build them or fix them depending on how they rank. Now today we start our second week of our Fighter series, and we are looking at the Banneret, otherwise known as the Purple Dragon Knight. And this is an interesting one that I don't see a lot of people playing, so let's just see how it works mechanically. But before we do, make sure to leave a like on the video and subscribe if you haven't already. As you can see, most people who watch the channel are not subscribed, so please don't be one of those people. Help us to reach our goal of 2,000 by the end of this year. I think we can do it, but I need your help, of course. Make sure to share the video with your friends, and of course click the bell so you're notified when new videos are uploaded. The Banneret is an interesting subclass that was introduced in the Sword Coast Adventurer's Guide. A lot of the subclasses that were introduced in that book have either been rewritten or just kind of left in the dust because they weren't very good. And this one has not seen a lot of use, at least as far as I've seen in tables. I'm yet to have one at my table, and I don't see them being used at any other table. So we're just gonna have to figure out what is going on with this. Is there a diamond in the rough here that no one is seeing? Or is there something wrong with the subclass that needs fixing? Let's find out. At third level, we get Rallying Cry, and this actually is a way for us to heal our allies, which is pretty cool. So how this works is whenever we use our second wind feature, which of course remember is once per rest, we can choose up to 3 creatures that are within 60 feet of us, and we can heal them a number of hit points equal to our fighter level as long as they can see or hear us. This is interesting, giving the fighter a way to heal. It is going to be a little limited because at absolute maximum, you're going to be healing 20 health, which at 20th level is not much, right? And we're also not saying that the second wind feature is an insane amount of healing either, but it actually is technically better than what it is that we're doing here. Overall, this is not great because this is only a once per short rest feature. Yes, it is a buff to our second wind feature, but at the same time, it's still so limited that I don't know that I want to go into a subclass where I have my main feature until level 7 to be something I can use once per rest. That kind of sucks, and the healing that you're going to be giving is not going to keep up with the scaling of levels as you go. I've got to give this a 5 out of 10. Like, it's okay to be able to heal, but as a fighter, we really need to be worrying about dealing damage or helping others deal damage. We need to be worried about taking charge in outside of combat situations. We need to be focusing on all of that, but this just falls completely flat in what it's trying to do. At level 7, we get Royal Envoy, and this actually makes us better in social situations. We get proficiency with the Persuasion skill, and if we already had proficiency in that, then we can choose from Animal Handling, Insight, Intimidation, or Performance, and we essentially get expertise in the Persuasion skill as well. So it's level 7 now, right? Our skill proficiencies that we have are probably pretty well locked in. And you also probably had a story reason for why you have each of those skill proficiencies or whatever it happens to be. We're just now getting one for free at level 7. All I get is Persuasion, which has nothing to do with combat, again, which is kind of the fighter's whole thing. And if we already took Persuasion, then we get one of these others, which are fine, but I mean, aren't going to be used all that much, I wouldn't think. I don't know how often fighters are rolling performance checks. I wouldn't say very much. And typically your persuasion checks, that's going to be something that your paladin or your bard or any of your other charisma-based casters are going to be doing. And so this is kind of forcing you into the role of the face of the party, but yet you may not have taken the best charisma score. So it's a little interesting how this works out. And overall, I think it's clunky, and I think that it's just too late to be getting a skill proficiency / 1 expertise when there are so many other classes that get 2 expertises way earlier and then get 2 more a little bit later. Overall, this is going to be a 4 out of 10. It's not that great because this isn't based on a skill that we would normally be taking a high number in. Yes, of course, you can take a high charisma as a fighter, but I mean, why? Why would you do that unless you're multi-classing somewhere else, unless you're doing something like that? I'm not going to invest a bunch of charisma just so that my persuasion checks do a little bit better, especially if I have a bard in my party. At level 10, we get Inspiring Surge, and this actually allows us to be somewhat of a commander figure for our party. What this does is when we use our Action Surge ability, we can choose a creature within 60 feet of us, and that creature can make one melee or ranged weapon attack with its reaction as long as it can see or hear us, and we actually can choose up to 2 allies within 60 feet of us once we get to level 18 in Fighter. This isn't too bad, right? Now, of course, there are other subclasses and classes that can do this, namely the War Cleric. The War Cleric gets this right off the bat, being able to do something like this. And this is tied to Action Surge. Again, something that you have a very limited use of. So we have 2 features currently that each are tied to a once per short rest feature, which I guess is fine, but the abilities that come with it are not good enough to warrant me wanting to use an entire subclass in order to be able to do this. If I want this ability, I can go be a cleric and be better at doing this and be better at healing somebody, so replacing Rallying Cry. And you know, honestly, I don't care about the persuasion skill. So right now it's looking like we're just kind of a worse cleric. And so overall, Inspiring Surge just isn't that great. Again, I'm going to go with a 4 out of 10 here. It really needs help. We need to be able to do this more often, a number of times equal to our Constitution mod, a number of times equal to our Charisma mod if we're going that way with Royal Envoy. Something needs to change there, and it not just be once per Action Surge, because you're going to be using Action Surge, not necessarily worrying about who is within 60 feet of you. And so that may end up forcing weird positioning, and it may not end up being as optimal as what it sounds. Finally, level 15, we go Bulwark, and this allows us to actually share our Indomitable feature, which is pretty interesting. So how this works is whenever we use our Indomitable feature to re-roll a mental saving throw, so Intelligence, which is never going to happen, Wisdom, which will happen a lot, and Charisma, in the middle, and you aren't incapacitated, you can choose one ally within 60 feet of you that is also failed its saving throw against that same effect. As long as that creature can see or hear you, it can re-roll the save and must use the new roll. So this is, I guess, slightly better because, you know, at least we get multiple uses of Indomitable, but at the same time, you're not always going to have somebody within 60 feet of you that is targeted by the same effect. Hold Person, for instance, that's not going to affect someone else unless it's being twinned or something like that. You and your friends are not always going to be subjected to this, and it doesn't say that if your friend makes a saving throw, you both have to. So it doesn't even allow you to share that just as long as someone's nearby. You have to both get hit by the effect, which makes it that much more limiting because it's not going to affect a Cone of Cold. It's not going to affect a Fireball. It's not going to affect any of these spells that have Strength, Dex, or Constitution saving throws. So that makes this a lot more limited. Yes, there are plenty of spells that this will work for, but I'm going to guarantee you that this restriction here is making it that much harder for me to use this feature. 60 feet is forgiving, and most of the time, if an AoE spell that forces one of these saves goes off, you're probably going to be within 60 feet of somebody. So, you know, if that happens, this will work. But a lot of these spells are going to be single target, and I don't see how this is going to be the best thing out there for you when you can't just straight up share it when you are nearby somebody. So for that, I'm going to give this a 5 out of 10. It's okay, but it's a lot more situational than what it sounds to me, and I think that they could have buffed it just slightly and made it a little more usable, but it's not going to go off as often as you think. So where does that leave us with our final ranking? It is only our second week in Fighter. Last week we talked about the Arcane Archer up in the icon above, and that one barely passed our test, and we still kind of gave suggestions with that one. There's no saving this one, at least in its current state. It's just very disappointing. I see what it's trying to go for. Obviously, there is one more part of this ranking, and that is the name, Purple Dragon Knight. That's a 10 out of 10 thing right there. Just the name Purple Dragon Knight is a 10 out of 10. That's obviously the only time that anything is coming anywhere near that ranking on this subclass, because the rest of it sucks. So Rallying Cry is a mediocre heal. Royal Envoy might as well not even happen, because you could get this by multi-classing. You could get this a bunch of different ways, and I just don't care about that feature at all. Inspiring Surge is fine, but it's more limited than other classes and subclasses that can do this. And then Bulwark is just limited in the fact that you have to have an AoE type of spell, or at least a multiple target spell that forces certain kinds of saving throws. Overall, this makes this a very situationally useful, and even when you can use it, mediocre then too. Overall, I've got to give this a 4 out of 10. It's not impressive at all. And I can see why people do not use it, because it is very disappointing. So that means later this week, we are going to have to go through and fix it. And I'm looking forward to going crazy with this one, because my goodness, it is so bad right now. We're going to have to do a lot in order to fix this thing. And I hope that you are looking forward to going through that with us. Of course, make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss when that video goes out. Let me know in the comments how you would fix this subclass leading up to that video. I am excited to always read those changes of what you suggest could go for these. Those are always a lot of fun. Until then, stay safe out there, stay healthy. We'll see you later. Bye-bye.